In the fight for survival, speed, agility, attacks, and even appetite need to loom larger than life. But even these animal Olympians can't measure up to the world of the weird. From freaky flyers to freaky frogs, from odd eaters to strange swarms, bizarre body snatchers, or mysterious mutants, this dream team doesn't play by the rules. See what it takes to be the best of the bizarre. These are nature's freaks. From strange faces to odd diets, curious customs to mysterious monsters, these freaks have got it all. This is the world of the weird. It takes some strange survival tactics to thrive in this wasteland, especially when you don't belong here in the first place. Turned loose by early settlers, Australia's dromedary camels have run wild in the outback for nearly a century. They can live on thorns and even drink salt water. But when it comes to mating, camels really start to take a walk on the wild side. A face covered in spittle is the height of sex appeal. But when a male really wants to flirt, inflating the soft palate is the only way to impress the ladies. A few sprays of urine seal the deal and keep other males from moving in on the prize. But some don't get the message. More than 800 kilograms of spit and muscle should send it home. A face full of camel spit might sound less than appetizing. But consider the diet of the baby koala. These furry marsupials are already one of nature's oddities. Koalas subsist almost entirely on the leaves of the eucalyptus, a toxic tree that offers so little nutrition they spend most of their time asleep, as much as 20 hours a day. At first, their babies get a better deal. For 7 months, the joeys live in the pouch, growing fat on mother's milk. But when the time comes to start snacking on solids, their mothers come through with pap. Pap is a half-digested mush of leaves and feces, chock full of bacteria that will help the joey digest his future meals. It's koala baby formula, straight from mother's rear. And baby goes right to the source. It's an odd and decidedly unattractive survival diet. But it will take a lot more food to sustain a creature this size. Weighing in at more than 400 kilograms and as big as a horse, the liger is the true definition of weird. The hybrid offspring of a male lion and a female tiger. Ligers are only created when the two rival cat species meet in captivity. And clearly, opposites attract. The resulting genetic cocktail cooks up a giant, a super cat that is so big, it may be too heavy to hunt. In the lion world, size equals dominance, so male lions pass on genes that encourage growth. But the females know that big doesn't always equal better. Their genes keep male cubs from getting too large, so it's thought that their whole litter has a better chance to survive. Tigresses don't carry a gene that inhibits the size of their cubs. So when a tigress meets a suitor from the wrong continent, their baby can end up bigger than both of the parents combined. It's mating time in the South American rainforest, and a choir of male calf birds is setting up for a show. But when this bird band gets together, it sounds more like a barnyard. Their staging is Spartan. They like to strip their risers bare, using their beaks to break off branches. That way, all the focus is on the song, because female calf birds have some pretty strange tastes in music. The bovine calls fill the trees. And soon the calf birds have attracted an audience. The calf bird isn't the only weirdo on the wing. The grey-crowned crane isn't afraid of commitment. During the mating season, these faithful birds are never more than 3 meters apart. This bird's feathery fringe looks like a cross between an owl and a circus clown. But the harpy eagle is actually a deadly predator. But when it comes to looks, nothing beats the tube-nosed bat. These scary snouts don't just smell, they're also full of sharp teeth, earning this weirdo the nickname Demon Bat. Most predators are armed with tooth and claw. Pure size tends to work too. But to be the best of the bizarre, you have to wield some much weirder weapons. Strange tools and tactics that enable these bizarre all-stars to swoop in for the kill. The woodpecker is already equipped to take on the trees. But it doesn't pummel wood with a saw or an axe, it just uses its head. This bizarre bird headbutts trees up to 16 times a second, at forces more than 250 times more powerful than a space shuttle liftoff. At that rate, just a few minutes of pecking should bring a lifetime of brain damage. But the woodpecker's head is harder to crack than a crash test dummy's. Right before each time the bird bludgeons a tree, a muscle behind its bill pulls the brain case away from the impact. Its extra long tongue retracts to act as a cushion for the skull. Some species even have an extra eyelid to shield against splinters. They turn into living jackhammers, able to drill for insects, drum for mates, and carve out nests. The flightless cormorant has an even more bizarre approach to survival. But you wouldn't know it to look at it. It's the only cormorant that can't fly, except this bird has no need to take to the skies. Instead, it swims for its dinner. Cormorant feathers absorb water, making them less buoyant underwater. That means they can quickly dive for prey. Even underwater, those little wings are useless, but a pair of webbed feet can help catch the speediest fish. Cormorants are so good at fishing that Japanese and Chinese anglers have used them to fish for over 1,000 years. Now that's a bird that deserves some shore leave. The toads of Hamburg in Germany are in trouble. Their bizarre bodies aren't helping them, they're killing them. Every spring, hundreds of European common toads meet here for a mating season. But the love fest can become an amphibian apocalypse. Toad carcasses litter the ground, surrounded by guts and gore. It's almost as if they have been bombed from the inside out. The toads were the victims of a surgical attack by a clever enemy. Crows have developed a taste for frog liver, a valuable source of vitamins and minerals. They've also developed a way to get them, using their beaks with surgical precision. When the liver is removed and the crow punctures a lung, air leaks into the body and the toad explodes. That may be a little too weird. These land animals look even more like science experiments gone wrong. The 6-meter-long gharial looks like the love child of an alligator and a crocodile. But that bulbous, snaggle-toothed snout is used to make a loud buzzing noise during vocalizations. The shy okapi looks like someone grafted the hindquarters of a zebra onto the body of an antelope. But the okapi is actually the only living relative of the giraffe. Those stripes help it hide in dense rainforest. But nothing screams weird scientist like the bird's tapir. This highly endangered mammal forages in the rainforests of Central America. When the super strange go on the move, there's only one rule: expect the unexpected. Whether escaping or attacking, working or traveling, nothing gets in the way of a bizarre all-star. When you set up house in the canopy of a Malaysian rainforest, there's only one way to get around. But birds aren't the only travelers on the arboreal highway. The teacup-sized Wallace frog prefers not to descend to ground level. Luckily, it's equipped with some pretty strange parachutes. The frog spreads its webbed feet and turns itself into a glider, using the membrane between its toes to catch big air. But it doesn't just jump out into the void. Its splayed feet can also act as steering wheels and brakes, controlling its fall. One leap can stretch 15 meters or more. The springtail can do even better. When it comes to odd evolution, these tiny creatures have always led the pack. They're one of the oldest land-dwelling animals on the planet. They spend most of their time munching on decomposing leaves and fungus. And no day is complete without a home spa treatment. One drop of grooming fluid keeps them from drying out, while 2 inflatable tubes help spread the fluid into every crevice. Springtails live on every single continent, even Antarctica. But when you're the size of a pinhead, you tend to be easy to miss, especially when you move this fast. Springtails are masters of the high jump. One push from a tiny limb in their abdomen and the bouncing bug can leap over 15 centimeters into the air. That's the equivalent of a human being jumping over a skyscraper. Scientists have discovered over 6,000 springtail species and estimate there are 15,000 more. But springtails aren't the only creatures one jump ahead of the competition. Plenty of reptiles like to leap after their prey. But not many of them have learned to do this. The rare Cuban crocodile makes its home in just 2 swamps on the long Caribbean island. In these brackish waters, fish are scarce. So the crocodile has evolved to improvise. Its body has heavy, scaly armor and a muscular tail that takes up 30% of its body mass. Its feet are less webbed than ordinary crocodiles, enabling it to run faster and jump higher than its ferocious kin. The Cuban croc doesn't just hunt in the shallows or at the water's edge, it looks to the skies. The trees are home to one of its favorite snacks. A rodent the size of a house cat called an utia. All it takes are a few swipes of that powerful tail to launch the croc skyward and take down the meat. The splash tetra also makes a leap into the blue. But this isn't a cunning attack. It's a mating dance. And it only has one strange step: fish out of water. The female nudges the male with her head, and they propel themselves skywards in a wriggling duet. They will jump until they have deposited at least 60 fertilized eggs. Then the male begins his new career, stay-at-home dad. With a flick of his tail, he splashes water on the eggs to keep them wet. He will keep this up for 2 days when the fry hatch into the world with a leap of their own. There's plenty more weirdness beneath the waves. The bubble-eyed goldfish doesn't inflate its eye sockets to stay afloat. These large balloons are full of lymph, an immune system fluid that helps the fish stay healthy. Then there's the hatchetfish. This freak's huge eyes help it see in the darkness of the deep. It lives more than 1.5 kilometers down. But the oddest ocean creature may be the frilled shark. This ancient monster is older than the dinosaurs, and it eats like a snake, dislocating its jaws to swallow a big meal. In the world of the weird, it pays to be assertive, and these bizarre brawlers use some unusual tactics to get their way. This insect mother has a brutal way of birthing her babies. Dozens of caterpillars have emerged from their eggs onto a juicy cabbage leaf. First, they devour the protein in their egg casings. Then it's off to life as a vegetarian. But they won't be safe for long. As the little worms munch, organic compounds released by the cabbage leaf attract a predatory Cortesia wasp. She needs a place to lay her eggs, and live caterpillar flesh is the first item on her bizarre baby's menu. The caterpillars barely notice the injection. Her eggs are accompanied by a virus that shuts down the host's immune system. There's no way for the caterpillar's body to fight back. As the wasp grubs grow, it won't be long before their host starts living the larval edition of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. For those that avoided an alien injection, the life cycle keeps on turning. But the less fortunate siblings have become an empty shell. The parasitic grubs spin their cocoons right over their unfortunate host. 2 weeks later, the adults emerge and fly off to find another victim. This armored African insect knows how to stand its ground. This fight is all about food, and dung is the only item on the menu. Whenever a herbivore deposits a pile, the dung beetles come out to play. And they can smell their food from far away. They're athletic eaters too. A nice-sized dung pile can be a fast food meal for thousands of beetles. But some species like their food to take away. Just cut, roll, and push it home. By balancing on its front and rolling the ball backwards with its hind legs, one beetle can push 10 times its weight and waste. To these insects, dung is everything. Food, shelter, even a baby nursery, which means these balls of poo are worth fighting for. There's just one way to win: eject the loser from the game. Even the silent giraffe has developed some strange tactics to get around its favorite food's defenses. Its thick hide, tough mouth, and acrobatic 45-centimeter long tongue can strip leaves from the thorniest trees. But the acacia tree still has a few tricks up its twigs, including chemical warfare. As the giraffe feeds, the acacia fires up its defenses, loading its leaves with tannins, a toxic soup when eaten in large quantities. It can even send chemical signals to nearby trees that it's time to lock and load. But poison doesn't seem to faze this giant foot soldier. There's a reason why. He has the perfect antidote: slobber. Giraffe spit neutralizes the tannin. But there's a sloppy side effect: giant drool trails. Other trees don't give up the fight so easily. The succulent whistling thorn acacia has hired insect mercenaries to defend its thorns and leaves from hungry raiders. They even get homegrown barracks. But a measly ant army isn't going to scare off the weirdest grazer on the plains. Just one bite mobilizes the defenses immediately. But it isn't until the ants crawl into the giraffe's mouth and nose that the giant ruminant begins to feel the sting. Chewing up the invaders doesn't help. There are too many. And those slimy drool trails don't help with this biting issue. There's only one thing to do: lick them out. But even sticking that long tongue straight up his nose doesn't get rid of the angry ants. The giraffe decides that a few thorny leaves aren't worth fighting for. When you need to eat for 20 hours a day, it's important to choose your battles. A Fulmar chick looks a little too cute and fluffy to be a brawler. And they seem pretty vulnerable to anyone who can climb high enough to catch one. But no one would want to take on these babies in a fight. They have a secret weapon that gives new definition to the word foul. The chicks appear to have weaponized an oily, pungent mix of their own secretions. When any threat comes near, they take aim and puke their guts out. They can propel their vomit almost 2 meters away. Any predatory bird hit with this projectile is going to have problems. The stinky spit can damage feathers as badly as any oil slick, making flight impossible. This weird-looking creature looks like something from outer space, but it's actually a shark. The spot in the center of its forehead is a giant eye. This is an albino cyclops shark pup. The dusky shark fetus has a rare mutation called cyclopia, a birth defect where the eyes don't divide. It may look like the most freakishly fearsome shark in the seas, but the fish won't have much to be scared of. Sadly, this mutant is unlikely to survive in the wild. Strange looks, weird weapons, fierce fights, all tried and true survival tactics in the world of the weird. You can be a bizarre beauty or the beast, but don't forget the brains. These are some of nature's oddest tricksters, creatures who con rivals into helping them survive. This is a full-scale ant invasion. But these Polyergus ants aren't raiding their rival ants to steal food or shelter. They're looking for slaves. Polyergus have a strange way of surviving. They depend on Formica ants to serve them. In fact, they are so dependent on their smaller servants for food, grooming, and defense that they've forgotten how to take care of themselves. Thousands of Polyergus soldiers invade a nearby Formica colony. But they don't bother with the adults. They carry away the babies. They bring the pupae back to their nest and enslave the Formica larvae from the cradle. The young ants will gather food for their masters, groom them, and raise their young. The Formicas will even defend the Polyergus colony when it's under attack. And when the enslaved ants get old and sick, they'll be cast off for new ones. To most insects, the bucket orchid's weird, waxy, fluid-filled flowers are a death trap. But to attract South America's orchid bee, the blooms use some pretty clever advertising. All the plant has to do is stick to the age-old principle: sex sells. The blossoms give off a pretty potent perfume, pheromones that make the male bees attractive to females. That's a scent the male bees will take any risk to wear. The male lands on the lip of the bucket-shaped bloom and begins to collect the heady cologne. But one misstep, and the bee falls into the slimy pool of liquid at the base. But unlike other victims, the bee takes advantage of a custom-designed escape hatch, a tight squeeze through the orchid's throat. But there's a price for passage. Two sticky pollen sacs are attached to the convict's back. There's only one way to remove them: to visit another orchid. As the bee orchestrates another prison break, a ridge in the flower's throat tears the pollen off his back, and each species gets what it needs to create a new generation. These unlucky amphibians are carrying a sinister hitchhiker. It looks like a post-apocalyptic nightmare. But these frogs aren't the victims of radiation poisoning or pollution. They've got worms. The mutants are infected with a parasitic flatworm called a trematode, and they have their most feared predator to thank for it. Heron droppings are riddled with trematode eggs. Snails eat the eggs, and when the tiny worms hatch, they seek out the perfect host to attach themselves to: a tadpole. But the easiest way to burrow into a juicy frogling is through the limb buds. When the damaged limbs try to regrow, the freak show begins. Multiple legs start to develop, and it isn't an accident. The parasite needs to come home to mama. And the only way to do that is to make sure its mutated host becomes easy pickings. This trickster species prefers a mother's touch. It's clear this cichlid mother puts her whole body into protecting her babies. And no one knows it better than the catfish that preys on her eggs. But these cuckoo catfish aren't just out for a quick snack. They're looking for foster mothers. As they slurp up cichlid eggs, they mix in a bunch of their own and abandon their young without a backward glance. When the cichlid mother approaches, she unwittingly scoops up the catfish eggs along with her own. Little does she know that her nurturing mouth will soon become a killing ground. The catfish eggs hatch first. They eat their smaller foster siblings alive. By the time their surrogate mother opens her mouth, none of her young have survived. Strangely, the mouth brooder will still protect her adopted children, scooping them back up whenever there is danger. Frigate birds never miss a chance to snack on cute little babies. When you're a trickster, easy pickings are your bread and butter. At sea turtle hatching time, the frigate bird's 2-meter wingspan swoops down on the nests, bringing death from the sky. Some turtles will never even reach the sea. But they don't just snatch babies out of nests. When it comes to feeding, these birds are pirates. And that means stealing from other species that do the heavy lifting. In this smorgasbord of seabirds, a storm petrel seems like a tasty treat. But just because you catch it doesn't mean you get to keep it. A pirate raid on the wing is risky. If one of the big birds has to take a water landing, its waterlogged feathers would keep it from taking off again. But the easy loot is too tempting, and a juvenile goes home with the booty. In the battle for survival, you can't beat the most bizarre beasts. Whether fighting or eating, mating or fooling around, or just acting more odd than your competition, one thing's for certain: being weird may be the way to survive.